Today, I'll discuss 5 reasons why we might be in a relationship with a narcissist. First and foremost, they are endearing. Self-obsessed people spend a lot of time managing their first impression and how they appear to people who meet them. They don't wear their selfishness or self-centeredness on their sleeve, and we might expect them to constantly speak about themselves. However, by focusing on you, they tend to cultivate attention and adoration. They may ask excellent questions or lavishly flatter or compliment us. In my recent video on love bombing, I discuss people who use affection and attention to get us to do what they want, which is extremely common with narcissists. They are excellent at making us feel wanted and the center of attention because, and here's the key, they understand that this behavior will earn them flattery in return. Many of us are initially drawn to narcissists because they are very good at appearing to be the ideal partner. We may even have worked on past relational patterns in which we were attracted to people who weren't interested in us and then met a narcissist, and we may even congratulate ourselves on finding someone who is genuinely interested in us. But they're only interested in us for what we can do for them, how we can make them look, or how we can help them achieve their goal of being adored. The second reason we may find ourselves in relationships with narcissistic partners is because of ourselves. When we have a low self-esteem, we are more likely to seek out partners who are narcissistic for a variety of reasons. Number 1, perhaps we are drawn to their assurance. If we're aware of our own insecurities, it can be appealing to see someone who can walk into any room and hold everyone's attention, and it can feel good to walk into a party with the most charming partner on our arm. In some ways, their confidence compensates for our lack of it. Number 2, because they're so good at the on-ramp to a relationship, we may become overly reliant on their compliments and attention. We can use their attention to boost our self-esteem. Finally, someone wants me, and it's someone so charming that everyone likes them, you know. We can't see clearly if a partner is a good fit or if we want them if we don't have a strong sense of worth because we're too busy trying to affirm our worth and get them to want us. Finally, if a narcissist begins to show the other side of their personality behind closed doors, usually through gaslighting or criticism, we may not know what we deserve relationally, making us more vulnerable to their manipulation. Perhaps they're right. Maybe I'm a bad partner, or maybe I'm remembering things incorrectly. You know, shame and gaslighting are great tools for narcissists to use, and they unfortunately go hand in hand with low self-esteem. The third reason we may find ourselves in relationships with narcissists is because of our family dynamics as children. Despite the fact that it is most likely the stuff of our worst nightmares, we all have a tendency to act out the relational dynamics that make sense to us. Assume you had a narcissistic parent, for example. As much as you despise the dynamic between the two of you, you may find yourself in similar situations as an adult. Why would we do such a thing? There are 2 reasons for this. Number 1, we sometimes replay past family patterns because they feel familiar to our brains, and familiar is safe to our brains, even if it is technically unsafe. And we've talked about it a lot over the years, particularly as it relates to depression or feeling bad. Feeling good can be frightening at times because we are unfamiliar with it and don't know what to expect. The same can be said for our relationships, which is why we may find ourselves dating someone who is similar to our mother or father, even if they were abusive. Even though it was painful, we were familiar with and used to that dynamic. Because it is so foreign, someone who is extremely caring and kind may feel strange or even unsafe. I did this when I was in my early 20s and dating. In high school, I had a boyfriend who lied a lot, cheated on me, and struggled with drug and alcohol addiction, and I stayed with him for a while thinking, you know, if I did everything just right, you know, he wouldn't have to do all those things anymore. Even after our relationship ended, thank goodness, I found myself looking for guys like him. It was almost as if I still wanted to prove to myself that I could fix him. It was completely toxic, which is why my therapist told me that the next time I dated someone, she wanted me to be uncomfortable. She was pushing me to break this pattern before it became any worse or more ingrained, and she was assisting me in proving to myself that someone treating me well, being honest and reliable was a good thing. And thank God for that because it's how I met and stayed with Sean, so yay. We can also cure ourselves or change the ending by acting out past family patterns. We can be like a character trapped in a choose-your-own-adventure book, retrying the same story over and over, hoping that if we just get one good outcome, it will heal us. For example, if we could persuade our narcissistic partner that we are good enough, we would be able to heal the wound left by our narcissistic parent, who never told us we were good enough. Fourth, we are codependent. Because we struggle with codependency, we may end up choosing partners with narcissistic tendencies. I've previously discussed codependency on my channel, and it's a tricky subject. When we are codependent, we do not feel dependent, which makes it difficult to identify. However, our reliance is on others feeling reliant on us. That makes sense, because we derive our sense of self from being needed by others. Perhaps we had a narcissistic parent or a parent with chronic illness, and we began to form an identity as the person in the family who cared for everyone and kept it all together. This sense of identity can lead to relationships with people who may treat us in unacceptable ways. We may find ourselves attempting to regulate our emotions by attempting to regulate theirs. For example, when we are anxious because they are upset with us, instead of learning how to manage our anxiety, we learn how to manage their feelings, to do things to make them feel better so that we can feel better. As a result, our emotional state is linked to their well-being and emotional state. Let me tell you who enjoys being in a relationship with someone who is codependent. Is someone who expects you to cater to their internal experience, which can manifest in a variety of ways, one of which is narcissism. It's a match made in heaven for them. You'll go to any length to keep them happy and learn to manage their preferences, and you'll pat yourself on the back for it, thinking you're such a healthy, loving person. It has the potential to be extremely toxic. When we're in love, we don't notice red flags. Even if we never think it could happen to us, even if we don't identify with any of the other characteristics I've listed, we might find ourselves in a relationship with a narcissist because we're just so emotional. We get that crush feeling, and our brain releases real chemicals and hormones that make us feel so good that we become obsessed with doing whatever it takes to protect that sensation, and we can suppress our ability to think critically. We all want more of those good feelings, don't we? Detecting red flags, on the other hand, is a direct threat to our lovey-dovey, that Twitter patient we can feel. What about all those butterflies? It's fantastic, and our minds are essentially working against us to keep us from confronting the truth. Not to mention that when we are in love, we can overlook things that we would normally find objectionable because being in love feels so good, or they promised, that it was just a fluke. It will not happen again. And it's not like narcissists reveal themselves right away. They love bomb us first, making us believe that they care about us and that we are the most important person. So, when things start to change, we remember all of the wonderful things they said or did when we were in the early stages of love bombing. So, what are we to do? There is no foolproof way to avoid getting involved with a narcissist. If there were, we'd all be doing it. However, there are a few things we can prioritize in our relationships that will, 1. Set us up for a healthy relationship regardless of who we're with, and 2. Make us less appealing as a partner to a narcissist. And the first is to maintain other interests or relationships. Because a narcissist wants your entire world to revolve around them, by the time people realize they're involved with a narcissist, they're usually isolated. We can be all in, especially in the early stages of a relationship. However, it is critical to maintain your friendships, hobbies, and sense of self. Having interests that do not revolve around them will be unappealing to a narcissist but appealing to a healthier partner. Number 2, we must control our own emotions rather than those of others. One of the primary characteristics that a narcissist seeks in a partner is someone who can cater to their emotional needs. Do you frequently find yourself managing other people's emotions, or is it more like we're attempting to manage other people's emotions because, spoilers, we can't, or are you absorbing how someone else is feeling? This is something we must work on, and it will include things like, boundaries, clear communication, and taking stock of our true feelings rather than attempting to read someone else's. Everyone is accountable for their own emotions. When you notice yourself becoming activated or triggered by someone else's emotions, remind yourself that it is your responsibility, not theirs, to regulate your emotions. As a result, practice allowing those around you to feel their emotions without attempting to control them. I understand how difficult it is. I, too, struggle with this. But we'll be fine. Work on our sense of self next. Everyone wants a partner who compliments and praises them, but we don't want anyone to have control over our sense of self-worth. It's simply too much power to delegate to someone else. So, if you notice yourself living for other people's compliments or being crushed by rejection to the point where you can't cope, it might be time to check in with your therapist and work on developing your sense of self-worth. We can build mastery, which is really just getting better at one thing in our lives, focusing our attention on it and getting good at it. We can also manage our self-talk and make it more neutral and less negative. Know that we can all end up in unhealthy or toxic relationships, and that this does not imply that we have failed or that we deserve to be treated this way. It simply means we have things to work on, and we're all works in progress, right? So, as you make these changes, be patient and kind to yourself. I hope you found this information useful. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again soon.